William Matthews had always been the type of person who noticed things others missed. As a junior accountant at Morrison Associates, a mid-sized firm in downtown Chicago, he spent his days buried in numbers and financial statements. The work was methodical, sometimes boring, but William found comfort in the precision of balanced books and organized files. On a particularly gray Tuesday morning in March 2023, William arrived at the office earlier than usual. The building was still quiet, with only the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of the custodial staff finishing their rounds. He liked these peaceful moments before the chaos of the workday began. His desk sat in the corner of the third floor, overlooking the busy street below. Stacks of client files waited for his attention, but something caught his eye that morning. In the pile of documents that had been left for him the previous evening, there was an old manila folder that looked different from the rest. While the other files were crisp and new, this one was yellow with age and slightly torn at the edges. William picked up the folder and examined it closely. The label was handwritten in fading blue ink, Blackwood Industries, Miscellaneous, 1981. He frowned. Blackwood Industries had been one of their clients for decades, but he had never seen documentation this old in the regular filing system. Most companies only kept detailed records for 7 to 10 years for tax purposes. Opening the folder, William discovered a collection of documents that immediately struck him as unusual. There were handwritten notes, old carbon copies of letters, and what appeared to be internal memos from 1981. The paper was brittle, and some of the text was faded, but most of it was still readable. The first document was a memo dated January 15th, 1981, from someone named Harold Blackwood to the company's board of directors. The memo discussed a special project that required complete confidentiality. William read through it carefully, noting phrases like unprecedented opportunity and must remain classified for at least 40 years. As he continued reading, William became increasingly intrigued. The documents seemed to outline a research project that Blackwood Industries had been secretly funding. The project involved something called temporal economic modeling, a term William had never heard before. According to the notes, they had hired a small team of scientists and economists to work on predicting future market conditions with what they described as revolutionary accuracy. One document that particularly caught his attention was a letter from Dr. Elizabeth Chun, apparently the lead researcher on the project. In her letter to Harold Blackwood, she wrote, "Our preliminary models are showing remarkable consistency. We can predict major economic events with 94% accuracy for up to 42 years into the future. The implications are staggering." William leaned back in his chair, trying to process what he was reading. Was this some kind of elaborate hoax? He had studied economics in college and knew that predicting economic trends beyond a few years was considered nearly impossible. Yet these documents seemed to suggest that Blackwood Industries had somehow cracked the code in 1981. He flipped through more pages and found a document that made his heart race. It was titled Economic Predictions 1981 to 2023 and contained a list of specific events with dates. William's eyes widened as he read through the list. 1987, major stock market crash in October. 1991, collapse of Soviet economic system. 2001, significant market downturn following terrorist attack in September. 2008, global financial crisis beginning with housing market collapse. 2020, worldwide economic disruption due to pandemic. William knew enough history to recognize that every single one of these predictions had come true. The timing was remarkably accurate, and some of the details were so specific that they couldn't possibly have been lucky guesses. His hands trembling slightly, he continued reading. There were predictions about technological advances, changes in global politics, and even specific stock prices for certain dates. A quick check on his computer confirmed that several of the stock predictions he could verify had been accurate to within a few dollars. As the morning progressed and his colleagues began arriving at the office, William tried to act normally, but his mind kept returning to the mysterious documents. During his lunch break, he made photocopies of the most important pages and tucked them into his briefcase. He wasn't sure if he was supposed to have access to these files, and he didn't want to lose them. That evening, William spread the documents across his kitchen table and began studying them more carefully. He made notes, cross-referenced dates with historical events, and tried to understand the methodology described in the research papers. The more he read, the more convinced he became that these documents were genuine. According to Dr. Chen's research notes, the project had been based on a combination of advanced mathematical modeling and what she called quantum probability analysis. William didn't understand all the technical details, but the results spoke for themselves. The predictions had been uncannily accurate. But what disturbed William most was what he found at the end of the file. There was a final memo from Harold Blackwood, dated December 1981, announcing the immediate termination of the project. The memo stated that the research team had been disbanded and all findings were to be sealed for 42 years. The reason given was potential ethical and societal implications of the research. William wondered what could have been so dangerous about economic predictions that an entire research project had to be shut down and hidden away. He also noticed that the 42-year timeline would end in 2023, this very year. As he sat in his small apartment that night, William realized he had stumbled upon something extraordinary. The question was, what should he do with this information? The documents contained predictions that extended beyond 2023, suggesting that there were still unrevealed forecasts about future events. The next morning, William arrived at work with a new sense of purpose. He needed to learn more about Blackwood Industries and the mysterious project from 1981. He began by discreetly researching the company's history, using his access to financial databases and public records. What he discovered was that Blackwood Industries had indeed undergone major changes in late 1981. The company had suddenly shifted its focus from manufacturing to investment and consulting. More interestingly, their investment record from 1982 onwards had been phenomenally successful. They had consistently outperformed market expectations, making profitable decisions that seemed almost impossibly well-timed. William also tried to find information about Dr. Elizabeth Chun and the other researchers mentioned in the documents. This proved more difficult. Dr. Chun appeared to have left academic circles entirely after 1981, and most of the other names on the research team led to dead ends. As the days passed, William became increasingly obsessed with the mystery. He spent his evenings researching quantum physics, economic theory, and anything that might help him understand how such accurate predictions could have been possible. He also began paying closer attention to current economic conditions, wondering if the future predictions contained in the files might be starting to unfold. The documents had mentioned specific dates in 2023 when significant economic events would occur. William marked these dates on his calendar and waited anxiously to see if the predictions would continue to prove accurate. 2 weeks after his initial discovery, William made another startling find. While organizing the documents for the 100th time, he noticed something he had missed before. Hidden behind Dr. Chen's final research report was a small piece of paper with an address written on it, along with a cryptic message. "If this research is ever discovered, find me here. Ichi." The address was in a small town about 2 hours outside of Chicago. William stared at the note for a long time, his heart pounding. Could Dr. Chen still be alive? Could she still be at this address after more than 40 years? That weekend, William decided to take a drive to the address. He told himself it was just curiosity, but deep down he knew he needed answers. The implications of what he had discovered were too significant to ignore. The drive took him through rural Illinois, past farms and small towns that seemed frozen in time. When he finally reached the address, he found himself standing in front of a modest house on a quiet street. The yard was well-maintained, and there were signs that someone was currently living there. William sat in his car for several minutes, debating whether to knock on the door. What would he say? How could he explain why he was there without sounding like a complete lunatic? Finally, his curiosity overcame his nervousness. He walked up to the front door and knocked gently. After a moment, he heard footsteps inside, and the door opened to reveal an elderly woman with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Dr. Chun," William asked hesitantly. The woman's expression changed immediately. She looked at William with a mixture of surprise and something that might have been fear. "How did you find me?" she asked quietly. William held up the piece of paper with her address. "I found some old documents from 1981. Research papers about economic predictions." "Your research papers?" Dr. Chun stood silently for a moment, studying William's face. Then she stepped aside and gestured for him to enter. "I've been wondering when this day would come," she said as she closed the door behind him. 42 years is a long time to keep a secret. As William stepped into Dr. Chen's living room, he noticed that the walls were covered with charts, graphs, and mathematical equations. It looked like she had never stopped working on her research, even after the official project had been terminated. "You said you found documents," Dr. Chen said, settling into a chair across from him. "What exactly did you find?" William pulled out the photocopies he had made and spread them on her coffee table. Dr. Chun examined them carefully, her expression growing more serious with each page. "These shouldn't exist," she said finally. "Harold promised me that everything had been destroyed." "Who is Harold?" William asked. "Harold Blackwood. He was the one who funded our research initially, but when he realized the full implications of what we had discovered, he got scared. We all did." Dr. Chin stood up and walked to one of the charts on her wall. It was covered with dates, numbers, and connecting lines that looked like a complex timeline. "You have to understand," she continued, "what we discovered in 1981 wasn't just a better way to predict economic trends. We had found a method to see into the future with scientific precision. Not vague prophecies or educated guesses, but exact dates and specific events." William felt a chill run down his spine. "How is that possible?" Dr. Chun smiled sadly. "That's a very long story, and one that I've been waiting more than 4 decades to tell someone." Dr. Elizabeth Chun moved to her kitchen and began preparing tea, her movements deliberate and careful. William watched her, noting how her hands remained steady despite what must have been the shock of having her decades-old secrets suddenly exposed. She appeared to be in her 70s, with silver hair pulled back neatly and eyes that held the weight of knowledge she had carried alone for too long. "The story begins in 1979, Dr. Chun said as she returned with 2 steaming cups. "I was a young professor at Northwestern University, specializing in mathematical economics. My work focused on chaos theory and its applications to market behavior. Most of my colleagues thought I was chasing fantasies, trying to bring mathematical precision to something they believed was inherently unpredictable." She settled back in her chair, cradling her teacup with both hands. "Harold Blackwood contacted me after reading one of my papers about cyclical patterns in economic data. He was different from other potential funders I had encountered. Most businessmen wanted quick results, practical applications they could use immediately. Harold was interested in the theoretical implications of my work, even if the practical benefits were years away." William leaned forward, captivated by her story. "What made your research different from traditional economic forecasting?" "Traditional forecasting relies on analyzing past trends and making educated assumptions about future behavior," Dr. Chen explained. "My approach was based on the idea that economic systems, like weather systems, follow underlying mathematical laws that can be modeled with sufficient computational power and the right theoretical framework." She stood and walked to a bookshelf lined with academic journals and research papers. Pulling out a thick folder, she returned to her seat and opened it to reveal hand-drawn diagrams and complex equations. "The breakthrough came when I began incorporating quantum probability theory into economic modeling. In quantum physics, particles exist in multiple probable states until they are observed. I theorized that economic events follow similar patterns, multiple possible outcomes existing simultaneously until certain trigger conditions collapse them into reality." William stared at the equations, understanding perhaps half of the mathematical notation. "You're saying economic events exist in a quantum state until something makes them happen?" "Essentially, yes. But the key insight was recognizing that these quantum states aren't random. They follow predictable patterns that can be calculated if you have the right variables and sufficient computational power." Dr. Chun traced her finger along one of the diagrams. "By 1980, I had identified 17 key variables that, when properly analyzed, could predict the collapse of quantum economic states into specific outcomes. She explained that the research team Harold had assembled included not just economists, but also quantum physicists, mathematicians, and even a few computer scientists working with some of the most advanced computers available at the time. The project had been housed in a nondescript building on the outskirts of Chicago, far from the university and away from prying eyes. The first successful test came in early 1981, Dr. Chun continued. We predicted a specific stock movement 3 months in advance, down to the exact price point and the day it would occur. Harold was amazed, but also concerned. He immediately imposed strict secrecy protocols on the entire team. William remembered the documents he had found, particularly the prediction list that had been so unervingly accurate. The predictions I saw: the stock market crash of 1987, the Soviet collapse, 9/11. You calculated all of those in 1981? Dr. Chin nodded gravely. Those, and many others. Our model wasn't just predicting economic events in isolation. We discovered that major historical events, wars, natural disasters, technological breakthroughs, all create ripple effects in quantum economic probability fields. By mapping these interconnections, we could predict seemingly unrelated events years or even decades in advance. She walked to another wall chart, this one showing a timeline that extended from 1981 to 2065. William noticed that many dates were marked with small red dots, and several had notes written beside them in Dr. Chen's neat handwriting. The model showed us that history isn't as random as people believe. There are underlying patterns, convergence points where multiple probability streams come together to create inevitable outcomes. The terrorist attacks of 2001, for instance, weren't just random acts of violence. They were the convergence of economic pressures, geopolitical tensions, and social movements that our model identified as early as 1981. William felt a deep unease settling in his stomach. If you could see these events coming, why didn't you warn anyone? You could have prevented tragedies, saved lives. Dr. Chin's expression became pained. That was exactly the debate that tore our research team apart. Some members wanted to publish our findings immediately. They argued that humanity deserved to know about impending disasters so they could prepare or potentially prevent them. Others worried about the chaos that would result from accurate future knowledge. She explained that Harold Blackwood had initially been fascinated by the commercial potential of their discovery. Perfect market predictions could have made his company the most powerful financial institution in history. But as the team continued to refine their model and the predictions became more detailed and disturbing, Harold began to question the wisdom of their work. The turning point came when we ran a prediction model for the period 1981 to 2025, Dr. Chin said, returning to her seat. The results were so shocking that Harold called an emergency meeting with the entire team. We had identified not just economic crashes and geopolitical events, but also specific dates when certain technologies would be invented, when particular political leaders would rise to power, and even when certain social movements would emerge. William tried to imagine the weight of such knowledge. It must have been overwhelming to know so much about future events you couldn't control. It was worse than that, Dr. Chin replied. We began to realize that our knowledge of future events might itself become a factor that could change those events. It created a paradox. If we knew something was going to happen and took action to prevent it, would that action itself be part of the pattern we had predicted? She described how the research team spent weeks debating the philosophical and ethical implications of their discovery. Some argued that their knowledge proved the future was predetermined and that any attempts to change events were futile. Others believed they had a moral obligation to use their knowledge to prevent suffering, regardless of the consequences. Dr. Marcus Webb, one of our quantum physicists, became convinced that we had accidentally discovered proof of a deterministic universe, Dr. Chin recalled. He argued that if economic events could be predicted with such precision, then free will itself might be an illusion. The psychological impact of this realization was devastating for several team members. The situation became even more complicated when the team realized that their model predicted its own discovery and termination. According to their calculations, the project would be shut down in late 1981. The research would be hidden for exactly 42 years, and then it would be rediscovered by someone working at the same accounting firm that handled Blackwood Industries' finances. "You mean you predicted that I would find these documents?" William asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Chin nodded. "Not you specifically, but someone matching your general profile working at Morrison & Associates. The model showed that the rediscovery would happen in March 2023, initiated by a junior employee with a background in economics who would notice inconsistencies in old financial records." William felt reality shifting around him. The idea that his own actions might have been predicted decades before he was even born was almost too much to comprehend. "If you knew this would happen, why didn't you destroy the documents completely?" "Because the model also showed that the rediscovery was a necessary part of a larger pattern," Dr. Chin explained. "Attempting to prevent it would have only delayed the inevitable and potentially created more problems. Harold and I made a difficult decision to allow events to unfold as predicted while taking steps to minimize potential harm." She explained that after the project was officially terminated, she had continued working on the research in secret. Harold had provided funding through a complex network of shell companies, allowing her to refine the model while maintaining the appearance that the project had been abandoned. "Over the past 40 years, I've been tracking the accuracy of our predictions and making small adjustments to the model," Dr. Chin said. "The accuracy rate has remained consistently above 90%. Every major economic crisis, every significant technological breakthrough, every important political development has occurred within days of our predicted dates." William thought about the predictions that extended beyond 2023. "What happens next? What did your model predict for the period after I discovered these documents?" Dr. Chin's expression grew serious. "That's where things become complicated. The model shows several critical decision points over the next few years, moments when small actions could lead to dramatically different outcomes. Your discovery of the documents represents the beginning of what we called the revelation phase, a period when knowledge of future events would gradually become more widespread." She walked to a file cabinet and withdrew a thick folder. "These are the predictions for 2023 to 2030. Some are relatively minor economic adjustments. Others," she paused, seeming to weigh her words carefully, "others involve events that could reshape the global economy and potentially alter the course of human civilization." William's hands shook slightly as Dr. Chun placed the folder in front of him. "Are you saying that what I do with this information could affect the future of the entire world?" "Not just what you do," Dr. Chun replied, "but how you do it, when you do it, and who you choose to share the information with." The model identified several possible paths forward from this point, each leading to very different outcomes. She opened the folder to reveal charts and timelines even more complex than those William had seen before. The documents contained specific predictions about technological breakthroughs, political changes, natural disasters, and economic events extending through the end of the decade. One path leads to gradual revelation of future knowledge, resulting in a more stable and prosperous world as humanity learns to prepare for challenges in advance, Dr. Chen explained. Another path involves rapid, uncontrolled release of the information, leading to global panic, market chaos, and potentially the collapse of several governments. William studied the charts, trying to understand the branching pathways that represented different possible futures. How am I supposed to choose which path to take when I don't even understand how any of this is possible? Dr. Chin smiled for the first time since he had arrived. That's exactly the right question to ask. The fact that you're approaching this thoughtfully rather than rushing to exploit the information suggests we may be on the more positive pathway. She explained that the next few weeks would be critical. According to the model, William would face several key decision points that would influence which future timeline became reality. The first decision involved whether to immediately share the information with others or to spend time understanding it more thoroughly. The model strongly suggests that patience and careful study lead to better outcomes than hasty action, Dr. Chen advised. There are specific people who need to be informed about this discovery, but the timing and sequence of those revelations is crucial. As the afternoon wore on, Dr. Chen shared more details about the research methodology and the specific predictions that lay ahead. She explained that the economic events predicted for 2024 would serve as a test of whether the model remained accurate after the revelation phase began. There's a significant market adjustment predicted for September 2024, she said, pointing to a specific date on one of the charts. If our model is still accurate, this event will unfold exactly as calculated, despite the fact that you now have advanced knowledge of it. William realized that he was no longer just an observer of these predictions. He had become a participant in the very system that Dr. Chen and her team had modeled decades earlier. The weight of this responsibility was almost overwhelming. As evening approached, Dr. Chen prepared dinner and invited William to stay. Over a simple meal, she shared more personal details about the years since the project termination. She had never married, dedicating her life entirely to monitoring and refining the prediction model. She had watched helplessly as events unfolded exactly as forecasted, knowing that intervention might cause more harm than good. The loneliness has been the hardest part, she admitted. Imagine knowing about every major tragedy years before it happens, understanding the suffering that's coming, but being unable to do anything about it without potentially making things worse. William began to understand why Harold Blackwood had been so frightened by the implications of their discovery. The psychological burden of accurate future knowledge was enormous, especially when that knowledge included awareness of human suffering and loss. As the night deepened, Dr. Chen showed William her current working model, a sophisticated computer system she had assembled over the decades using increasingly powerful technology. The modern version of her prediction system could process far more variables than the original 1981 model, providing even greater accuracy and detail. The model now incorporates real-time data feeds from hundreds of sources, she explained, gesturing to multiple monitors displaying constantly updating economic indicators, social media sentiment analysis, and political polling data. This allows for dynamic adjustments to the predictions as new variables emerge. William marveled at the complexity of the system. How do you manage all of this by yourself? Very carefully, Dr. Chen replied with a tired smile, and with the knowledge that my work will soon be coming to an end. The model predicts that within the next few years, responsibility for this knowledge will pass to a new generation of researchers. She explained that William's discovery of the original documents was just the first step in a carefully orchestrated transfer of knowledge. Over the coming months, other individuals with specific expertise would be guided to discover additional pieces of the puzzle, eventually leading to the formation of a new research team. Unlike our original team, which worked in secret, this new group will have the benefit of 4 decades of validation data, Dr. Chen noted. They'll be able to approach the work with confidence in its accuracy while learning from our mistakes about how to handle the knowledge responsibly. As William prepared to leave that evening, Dr. Chen handed him a small device that looked like a modified smartphone. This will give you secure access to updated predictions and allow you to communicate with me without leaving traces that could be discovered by the wrong people. She also gave him a list of specific dates over the next 6 months when important decisions would need to be made. The model shows several branch points where your choices will significantly influence future outcomes, she explained. I'll be available to guide you through the process, but ultimately, the decisions will be yours to make. William drove home through the darkness, his mind reeling from everything he had learned. The simple discovery of old documents in a filing cabinet had led him into a world of quantum economics, predetermined futures, and enormous responsibility. As he pulled into his apartment complex, he realized that his life had been permanently changed, and there was no going back to the comfortable ignorance he had enjoyed just a few weeks earlier. The weeks following William's meeting with Dr. Chen passed in a blur of secret research and growing anxiety. The secure device she had given him provided daily updates on economic indicators and probability adjustments, all of which continued to align perfectly with the decades-old predictions. William found himself checking the device obsessively, watching as real-world events unfolded exactly as the quantum economic model had forecasted. The first major test came in early April when the model predicted a specific technology company would announce a groundbreaking artificial intelligence breakthrough on April 18th. William watched the news that day with nervous anticipation, and at exactly 2:47 p.m. Eastern Time, the announcement came. The details matched Dr. Chen's predictions down to the stock price reaction and the specific language used in the press release. This validation both thrilled and terrified William. If the model could predict such specific details about future events, then the more dramatic predictions for later in the year might also prove accurate. According to Dr. Chen's charts, several major economic and political events were scheduled to unfold over the coming months, each one more significant than the last. William's behavior at work began to change in subtle ways. He found it difficult to concentrate on routine accounting tasks when he knew about major market movements that would happen weeks or months in advance. During team meetings, he had to resist the urge to warn colleagues about companies that he knew were going to experience significant problems. The psychological pressure was beginning to affect his sleep and appetite. Dr. Chen had warned him about this, explaining that knowledge of future events created a unique form of stress that the human mind wasn't designed to handle. She had experienced similar symptoms during the original research project and offered techniques for managing the mental burden. The key is to remember that you're not responsible for events themselves, she reminded him during one of their secure conversations. Your responsibility is to help ensure that knowledge of these events is used wisely when the time comes. In late April, William faced his first major decision point. The quantum model had identified a specific individual who needed to be brought into their circle of knowledge, Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, an economist at the University of Chicago who specialized in complexity theory and market dynamics. According to the predictions, Dr. Rodriguez would play a crucial role in the responsible dissemination of future economic knowledge. William spent days researching Dr. Rodriguez's background and academic work. She was brilliant, respected in her field, and had written extensively about the ethical implications of advanced economic forecasting. The model suggested that she would be receptive to their extraordinary claims, but William still struggled with how to approach her. Dr. Chen advised patience and careful preparation. Sarah Rodriguez is a skeptical scientist who will require substantial evidence before accepting our claims, she explained. But the model shows that once convinced, she becomes one of our most valuable allies. Following Dr. Chen's guidance, William began by attending Dr. Rodriguez's public lectures at the university. He wanted to understand her thinking patterns and communication style before attempting to contact her. During one lecture on the limitations of economic forecasting, Dr. Rodriguez made a comment that gave William hope. The holy grail of economics would be a system that could predict major market events years in advance, she said to her students. But such a system would raise profound questions about free will, market manipulation, and the very nature of economic reality. After the lecture, William approached Dr. Rodriguez during the informal reception that followed. He introduced himself as an accountant with an interest in economic theory and asked thoughtful questions about her research. Dr. Rodriguez seemed impressed by his knowledge and invited him to attend her advanced seminar the following week. Over several weeks, William gradually built a relationship with Dr. Rodriguez, demonstrating his serious interest in economic theory while carefully probing her views on various aspects of future prediction and quantum mechanics. The model had provided specific talking points and topics that would resonate with her academic interests. The breakthrough came when William mentioned a specific paper on quantum economics that Dr. Chen had published in 1979. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes lit up with interest. "I've referenced that paper in my own work," she said excitedly. Chen's theoretical framework was decades ahead of its time. "I've always wondered what happened to her research. She seemed to disappear from academic circles in the early 1980s. This gave William the opening he had been waiting for. What if I told you that Dr. Chen's research didn't disappear? It was hidden for reasons that are only now becoming clear. Dr. Rodriguez studied William's face carefully. I'd say you've got my attention. What exactly are you suggesting? Following the script that Dr. Chun had provided, William began to reveal carefully selected pieces of information. He started with the documents he had discovered at work, showing Dr. Rodriguez the 1981 memos and prediction lists. Her initial skepticism gave way to fascination as she verified the accuracy of the historical predictions. "This is impossible, Dr. Rodriguez said, examining the documents for the third time. "No one could have predicted these events with this level of precision." William then showed her the secure device and some of the real-time updates that Dr. Chen's system provided. When Dr. Rodriguez saw predictions for specific stock movements the following day, she insisted on waiting to verify them before continuing the conversation. The next day, every prediction proved accurate. Dr. Rodriguez called William immediately, her voice trembling with excitement and concern. "I need to meet Dr. Chen immediately. If this technology is real, it represents the most significant scientific breakthrough in human history." The meeting was arranged for the following weekend at Dr. Chen's house. William felt nervous about expanding their circle, but the quantum model had consistently shown that Dr. Rodriguez's involvement was essential for positive outcomes. Dr. Rodriguez's reaction to Dr. Chen's full laboratory setup was one of awe. As a professional economist with a background in physics, she understood the theoretical implications better than William had. She spent hours examining the mathematical frameworks and computer models, asking detailed technical questions that Dr. Chun answered with obvious relief at finally having a qualified peer to discuss her work. "The quantum probability mathematics are sound," Dr. Rodriguez concluded after her examination. "This isn't just revolutionary. It's proof that economic systems follow quantum mechanical principles at a macro level. The implications for understanding reality itself are staggering." Dr. Chun explained the history of the research and the reasons for its secrecy. Dr. Rodriguez listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions about specific technical details or ethical considerations. "I understand why this had to be hidden," Dr. Rodriguez said finally. "But now that the 42-year period is ending, what's the plan for moving forward?" This question led to a lengthy discussion about the next phase of the quantum economic project. According to the model, the three of them represented the core team that would guide the gradual revelation of future knowledge to select government officials, academic institutions, and international organizations. "The key is controlled disclosure," Dr. Chen explained. "The model shows that rapid, uncontrolled release of this information would cause global economic chaos. But carefully managed revelation, with proper safeguards and ethical oversight, could help humanity prepare for and potentially mitigate future challenges." Dr. Rodriguez's academic connections would be crucial for this process. The model had identified specific economists, policymakers, and international organizations that needed to be informed about the research, but the timing and sequence of these revelations required precise coordination. Over the following days, Dr. Rodriguez worked with Dr. Chun to verify the accuracy of additional predictions and understand the full scope of the quantum economic model. She was particularly interested in the methodology that allowed for such precise long-term forecasting. The breakthrough was recognizing that economic behavior follows quantum principles, Dr. Chun explained during one of their technical sessions. Just as particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, economic systems exist in probability clouds of potential outcomes. By mapping the mathematical relationships between these probability states, we can predict when specific outcomes will manifest. Dr. Rodriguez quickly grasped the implications. But this means that individual economic decisions aren't truly random. They're expressions of underlying quantum mechanical processes that can be calculated in advance. Exactly, Dr. Chen confirmed. Free will exists at the individual level, but collective economic behavior follows predictable patterns that emerge from the interaction of millions of quantum probability fields. As May progressed, the three collaborators began preparing for the next phase of their work. The quantum model predicted that by summer, they would need to make contact with government officials who could help manage the social and economic implications of their discoveries. The first target was Dr. Jennifer Walsh, an economic advisor to the Federal Reserve who had written extensively about systemic risk in global financial markets. According to the model, Dr. Walsh would be instrumental in developing policies to prevent market chaos as knowledge of future events gradually spread. Dr. Rodriguez volunteered to make the initial contact through professional channels. As a respected academic economist, she had credibility that William lacked and connections that Dr. Chun had abandoned decades earlier. The approach to Dr. Walsh required even more careful preparation than the recruitment of Dr. Rodriguez. Government officials were naturally suspicious of claims about revolutionary technologies, especially those with potential national security implications. The model provided detailed guidance on how to present the information in ways that would minimize skepticism while maximizing the chance of serious consideration. William found himself playing an increasingly important role in coordinating these efforts. His background in accounting and finance provided practical insights that complemented Dr. Chen's theoretical knowledge and Dr. Rodriguez's academic expertise. The three of them formed a surprisingly effective team, each contributing unique skills to their shared mission. The psychological challenges continued to intensify as William became more deeply involved in the project. Knowing about specific future events created a constant sense of anticipation and anxiety. The model predicted several economic downturns and geopolitical crises over the next few years, and William struggled with feelings of helplessness about events he couldn't prevent. Dr. Chun shared meditation techniques and cognitive exercises that had helped her cope with similar stress over the decades. Remember that knowledge of the future doesn't make you responsible for the future, she reminded him regularly. Your role is to help ensure that humanity is better prepared for what's coming. By late May, they were ready to contact Dr. Walsh. The approach would be made through Dr. Rodriguez's professional network, beginning with a request for a consultation on novel approaches to systemic risk assessment. The quantum model predicted that Dr. Walsh would initially be skeptical, but would become convinced after seeing evidence of the prediction system's accuracy. The team spent weeks preparing for this crucial meeting, knowing that it would represent a significant escalation in their efforts to share knowledge of future events with the outside world. Success would open doors to government resources and policy-making capabilities. Failure could result in their research being confiscated or discredited. As June approached, William reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since discovering those old documents in the filing cabinet. He had gone from being a junior accountant with a quiet, predictable life to being part of a secret team managing one of the most significant scientific discoveries in human history. The weight of responsibility was enormous, but William was beginning to understand that his role in these events had been predetermined by the same quantum mechanical processes that governed all economic and social behavior. Whether he had free will in the conventional sense was becoming less important than ensuring he made choices that led to positive outcomes for humanity. The secure device continued to provide daily updates on probability adjustments and prediction refinements. As the summer of 2023 approached, William watched with fascination and growing concern as the model showed increasing volatility in global economic systems. The careful revelation of future knowledge was about to enter its most critical and dangerous phase.